How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to school night. We're so happy to have you here. Great to see you. Hopefully you enjoyed that Cafe Rio. Just want to tell you about something else that's going on the back table and outside. We got some buntinis. If you're ready for dessert, there's some things. If you want to grab it right now, you could do that. There's buntinis. There's red velvet. There's lemon. There's birthday cake remix. There's 5 extra pounds. There's the end of the diet. There's all those things that you could get on the back table if you want to right now. Awesome. Well, as you're grabbing some dessert, I want to give you guys something tonight. We're talking about what it means to connect with leaders and parents tonight. One thing we want to do is help provide some resources for you. So we got some books we want to give away to you guys tonight. But in the process, we don't want to just give them away or raffle them off. That's lame. We're going to do some trivia. So Elvis Iescas, where are you at, Elvis? Where are you at? There he is. Hey, we got a man named Elvis right there. Elvis is in the building. He's not left the building. He's still in the building. Also, Elvis, do you get any weird shirts wearing that Chipotle shirt around? Did you get any weird shirts wearing that Chipotle shirt around? No weird looks. People are like, no. Okay. All right. Hey, so we got some questions for you about the ministries represented here, about True North, about Abide, about Together, about The Narrow. And we got a couple of questions. So if you raise your hand and you can give me the correct answer to this question, I'll give you one of these books. Hey, what's the first book that we got over there? Thoughts for Young Men by J.C. Ryle. So if you want that book, you're going to want to answer this question. All right, here's trivia question number 1 for you. What was the theme of our revival summer camp a couple weeks back? What was the theme? Anybody? Yes, right there. The image, that's right. Thoughts for Young Men right there. Awesome. Look at that. That was easy. They're going to get harder. Okay? Hopefully they're going to get harder. All right, question number 2. Elvis, what's the book? Knowing God by J.I. Packer. That's a great book. That's a great book. You're going to want to get that. All right, here's the question. What college did Pastor Rod graduate from? Biola, right there. Somebody knew. Biola. Small smattering of applause. If you went to Biola, are you proud that you went to Biola? There's only one. That's fine. That's great. Elvis, what's our next book? How to Help People Change. Jay Adams. The late, great Jay Adams. All right. Question number 3. What was the last book that I preached through in The Narrow? What was the last book that I preached through? Yeah, I didn't think so. Hold on. What? I didn't see a hand. Okay, I'll go for it. Deuteronomy, that's right. Deuteronomy, thank you. That makes me feel better. Uh-huh. Oh, she already has that one. What? Tell her to pick. All right, Deuteronomy. Yeah, that was weird. So I report to Pastor Lucas, so I usually tell him things that I'm going to do beforehand. I said, yeah, I'm going to preach through Deuteronomy in junior high. And he's like, why? Why are you going to preach through Deuteronomy? It's like, well, sounds like a good idea. There's great things in Deuteronomy. It's awesome. That was like the most thoughtless response to what I preached through. It's not that thoughtless. I was like, so this year in The Narrow, by the way, we're doing one sermon series in the summer, fall, and spring. We're going through the Old Testament, but I didn't want to go through the whole Old Testament. So I was like, you know what? I'll pick one book from the law, one book from the prophets, and one book from the writings. So we're doing Deuteronomy, Isaiah, and Psalms. So anyway, you didn't ask for that. Next question. Question number 4. What is the book, though? How to Help People Change. Somebody wants it. People are like, I don't want this counseling book. It's going to be too convicting. It's going to be too convicting. But you guys all have teenage kids. You should want the book called How to Help People Change. Right? There's a lot of change. All right, question number 4, sorry. How do you properly pronounce the name of our new assistant for Pastor Rod and the high school ministry? How do you properly pronounce that? Okay, right there. What was that? Monse, no. Who said? Monse, right there. I probably said it wrong, but that was even closer. Monse. Hey, it was close. I got it wrong for the first 3 months, so it's okay. Where is she? She. Did you notice how I avoided? Sorry. I didn't want to say it wrong. Monse, yes. All right. Question number 6. What books do we have left? God and the Transgender Debate. That's pretty heavy. What does the Bible really teach about homosexuality? Wow, these are 2 uplifting titles that we have left. You know what? We'll pick an uplifting question. This one's about Elvis. All right, here's the next question. What is Elvis's middle name? This is hard. You get the transgender book if you get this right. That's how hard this question is. Middle name, just guesses. We just want guesses now. Olivia. He does have one. So not, he doesn't have one. Aaron, wrong. Francisco? No. The sister-in-law didn't even know it. Wow. Is Elvis his wife here? You're the closest relation to him. And it, James, no. So not Santiago either. Elvis, Presley, that's right. No, not Presley. You're named Elvis because your dad's named Elvis, not because Elvis Presley. But was he named after Elvis Presley? Oh, so you're Elvis's grandson. Okay. All right. We'll skip that one. We have extra. It's Fernando. Fernando. Or how he said it, Fernando. Nando. Okay, got it. All right. Next question. This is for the, how about this? You get to pick. How about that? All right. Here's the next question. What was the topic of the last Parents United meeting that we had? What was the topic of the last one that we had? Oh, no. This hurts a little bit. Baca. Technology, right? Was that the last one? That was the last one. Yes, technology. You get to pick the book. And we've got one more that will be a perfect segue into who you're going to see next. Question number 5. What are they going to do it for? The transgender book? Wow. Well, that one went last. All right. You guys just know all the answers. I get it. Okay. Last question. What night of the week does the Together singles ministry meet on? What night of the week? Sunday? Incorrect. Saturday night. Angela's got it. Saturday night. And speaking of the Together ministry, I want to welcome up Pastor Kellen and Pastor Doug to the stage. Yes. You had to outrun them like that.
I did. And I won that, just for the record.
How's everybody doing? Well, we want to take this opportunity, since we have you guys captured right now, to talk about our ministries. I know a lot of you, if you're in either Abide or Together, raise your hand real quick so that we can exclude everyone else. Okay.
I'm glad you combined it.
Yeah, we combined it.
Both of these are yours.
That's okay. That's all right. All right. So these 2 ministries are such a great opportunity because while it's so important for you to have your kids discipled and underneath the Word of God through great teaching from Pastor Rod and Pastor John, we want you to be underneath teaching as well, to be in small group ministries. So we have Abide, which is a marriage ministry for married couples who have teenagers. That meets the same exact time as True North and Narrow on Wednesday nights. We start off with our kickoff next week, where we're going to always get together, have food, fellowship with one another, sit underneath God's Word, jump into small groups, and just with people who are in that same life phase that you're in, with some relevant teaching for you, both as a married couple and for your parenting. And then, of course, we've got our Parents United, which is something that we're doing again this year. We skipped last year because of COVID stuff, but we're back up again, and everybody's invited to that, and we host that, so that'll be a good thing. So we've got Abide on Wednesday. If you're married, we'd love to have you for that, and then you've got your thing on Saturday night.
Saturday, which one of my leaders got. Thank you. I'm glad she got it. But yes, we have our Together ministry is for singles and single parents, and it's typically between the age of 35 and 55. And we meet Saturday night over in 120 East. It starts right after the Saturday evening service, so we kick off about 6:45. We do dinner and fellowship, and then have a teaching. And then we do our small group. So every first Saturday, we do a fellowship, which this Saturday, we're actually going to the Angels game. And so it is an exciting ministry to be a part of, and I'm so blessed and honored to be able to lead that ministry. But if you are single, I'd love to invite you to that ministry. If you know someone that is single, that fits that age range, or is a single parent, then please invite them to our ministry. We'll have some cards back there for Together, and it'll also be combined with Alliance, but you can pick some of those up and pass them out to some friends, and we hope to see them on Saturday evening with Together. So we've been going through the summer, so we don't need a ramp up. We're just getting right back to it. So hope to see you on Saturday.
We need to ramp up.
You need a ramp up.
Right, everybody? We needed a ramp up,
you need a break.
We're playing fun games, and we're going to make fun of our leaders. I mean, enjoy our leaders. So it'll be great. So you guys can show up next week. All right. Is it Pastor Rod next? Pastor John.
Sure.
Come back up here.
Pastor
Thank
John's
you, guys.
back.
Hopefully we'll see you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, hey, I want to tell you a couple of things about the junior high ministry. The main goal of tonight is really for you to get to know the people at your table. That's the main thing tonight. This is just the preview, because what we want you to do is to be able to build those bridges and the connections that you can have and utilize later on between you and your kid's small group leader. That's super important to us. It's important for you to get to know the people at your table, but especially those one or two people that are the small group leaders, because throughout this year, they're going to be with your student 1 hour a week in a focused time talking about the Bible. And that's really important. And all these people are volunteers. They all are giving their time to be with your students all year long. So please get to know them, because they want to know you. And they want to build that bridge so that they can have a better understanding of who their students are, and also so that they can partner with you, which is really the whole goal of our youth ministries here. A lot of people in a lot of churches want to take the youth ministry and replace parenting with the youth ministry, right? We do not believe in that here at Compass Bible Church. The youth group is not a replacement for parents, it's reinforcement for parents. We want to come alongside you because God has gifted you with these people, these souls that you are called to lead and to disciple and to train for 18 plus years. So all we're doing is coming alongside you to help you do that. And because of that, it's so important for you to get to know the people at your table, because that is what tonight is all about. And there's a verse that talks about discipleship that we don't often use because it's actually a negative verse, but it's one I want you to think about. In Luke chapter 6, verse 40, Jesus talked about discipleship, but he actually talked about it in a negative sense. He said in the verse earlier that blind guides lead blind people and they lead them astray. And the next verse, in verse 40, says, and every disciple, when he is fully trained, is like his teacher. Now, the reason I bring that up is because that's true of every student, every child, and every disciple. We want to be the people here at this church that help you become a better disciple maker, and that's all that we're here to do, is help you be a better disciple maker. I know that for 12 years or for 17 years or 18 years, depending if you got a senior in high school, you've been doing the hard work of discipling and training and teaching and correcting. What we'd love to do is just help you in this process. When we look at the Bible and distinguish kind of the two ways that parents lead their kids, we see in Ephesians chapter 6 that they're called to guide, and that comes at the end of the parenting stage, and also to correct. The correction comes mostly at the beginning, hopefully a little bit at the ending too, but mostly at the beginning, and the guidance comes at the second part. We know that we're not coming in as the kids ministry trying to, teach you what it means to be a parent. You already know what it means to be a parent. All we want to do is help you through these teenage years, because they can be especially hard years. They can be years where students get into more problems, they get into more sin, there's more temptations for them, and we want to be a place where they can be at every single week to be with other godly people, specifically the people that you are seeing at your tables, those small group leaders. So I want to tell you a couple things about the Narrow. First of all, we meet every Wednesday night. Wednesday night is our big night that we meet. We meet right across the street in 120 East. There is a lot of time for them to hang out with other people. There's time for them to eat together. They hear a sermon every week. We're going to be going through, like I said, we're going to be going through the book of Isaiah. Over 12 weeks, we're going to go through the whole book of Isaiah. And we're going to cover so much about what it means to listen to God, what it means to respect God and see him as he is, which is what the whole book of Isaiah is about, us understanding that God is the only God, as a correction to a lot of how the world views God. So we're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be doing small groups every week with the people that you see at your table. Those small group leaders will lead about 45 minutes to an hour-long time of talking about the sermon they just heard. So if you're familiar at our church with the application questions that are on the back of Pastor Mike's worksheets, we basically have that same format, just brought to one night. They hear the sermon, they get the small groups right after. And we found that super effective, and it's a better thing than even just splitting them apart, because it's so good for them to hear the sermon and respond to it immediately in those small groups. So that's the big thing we do every Wednesday. Just a note on what we expect on the weekends. For junior high ministry, we have something that's really cool, that's really on like an application basis. Only if your student wants to go the extra mile. It's something called Train. Comes from 1 Timothy 4 that says we want to train ourselves for godliness. So this is really more like a class that's condensed to an hour and a half time on Saturdays from 3 to 4:30 in 120 East. So as you might have already seen on those parent updates that you get, there's a form that you can fill out and your student can fill it out. Basically what Train is it's a class where they can learn more about God's Word. This year we're doing an in-depth study of the entire story of the Bible. The entire narrative from Genesis all the way to the end of the book of Acts. We're studying that over the course of about 20 different lectures. And there's lectures and there's homework and there's all these things that are really great, like class. You might be saying that's really boring. But we found that for the students who do it, it usually is one of their most favorite things that they do. I don't quite understand that because it's so much work and it's so, not so much work. It's not that bad. But if your student's like, oh, I don't want to do a ton of work, then maybe don't do it. But if they're up for the challenge, it's a great thing for them to do. We do 2 retreats every year. This year, we're having one in January. We're having one in May, just for those students who are in the Trained Student Discipleship Ministry. So that happens on the weekends. And during the weekend services, one thing I'd really highly recommend for you to do is sit with them in the main service. That's what we have for them. We want them to be in church. We want them to be hearing Pastor Mike, responding to their pastor, and being here as a part of the congregation. That's so important to us. And I know that in the past, we've had stuff on the weekends, and then we want them to go to the main service and then go to the narrow and things like that. We really want them to be in the main service. And also, we want to be able to have them serve on the weekend service. I know that's not something everyone can pull off, but if your student can get in the 3-year-old class or the 4-year-old class or the 2nd grade class and get the starting of serving the church and even the kids that are lower than them, that's an amazing thing to do. So that's what happens on the weekends here. Train is the big thing we do, but that's at 3 p.m. on Saturdays, every other Saturday. And that's really on like an application basis. So they can sign up for that. But if they don't sign up for that and they're not a part of that group, that's really not something we have them go to. So that's the weekends. And the last thing I want to tell you about is a date that I'd love for you to put on your calendars. We just settled on this date, the date for winter camp. It's actually in the spring, so I don't know if it's winter camp. Darcy likes that it's... Do you like that it's in March? I mean, she likes that it's in March. We try to melt all the snow so that we don't have to put chains on the cars. No, that's not why. Anyway, March 11th to the 13th, we're going to winter camp. March 11th to the 13th, that's winter camp for junior high and for the 5th and 6th grade ministry. So we go together, starting last year. We go together, and it was such a great experience. We want to continue that. So that's all you need to know about the Narrow, and potentially more than you needed to know about the Narrow. So I'm going to welcome Pastor Rod up, because Pastor Rod is going to tell you a little bit about high school before you guys can continue talking to each other.
Well, let me start by saying thank you for being here. Pastor John and I, we do count it a sacred trust to be able to be part of the discipleship of your young men and women that are in your family. In fact, we take it so seriously that we think that stuff like this is incredibly valuable because we want you to know our leaders. We want you to have an open dialogue with one another so that information can be exchanged and communicated and also utilized so that we can both do our jobs better. So Pastor John just gave you some insight into the Narrow junior high ministry, but everyone in this room is either presently a high school parent or they will be soon enough. So everything I'm going to say to you is likely going to be relevant to where you're going or where you're presently at. So first and foremost, in the next few months, high school ministry is going to be covering what we call temptations of the flesh. So I'll be preaching on a variety of topics that are relevant to where your high schoolers are. Now, if you know anything about how trends are going, you know that this present generation called Gen Z, or sometimes iGen. I think Gen Z is going to be the term that sticks around the most, but Gen Z is depressed, they're anxious, they're dealing with suicidal ideation. They have this incredible drive to make a difference in the world around them, and yet at the same time, they're a bit jaded and a little cynical. And so part of what I try to do every year is to find sermons find sermons to create sermons that speak specifically to where they're at. So a couple weeks ago, we talked about anxiety, how to deal with that, and that's by far one of the most pressing, most dominant issues of our day for our high school students. In a few weeks, we're going to talk about laziness and lying. They call it capping. No cap, you don't want to lie. We talk about things like one of my sermons is about being selfish and being self-focused and overly introspective. You know, when they post stuff online, they're setting up a presentation. They're trying to create an identity online where they're telling people who they are, but that's just a facade. It really isn't who they are. So they're talking about a lot of things like that. That's a pretty regular feature in high school ministry. But on top of that, we also like going through books of the Bible. So in November, we're going to kick off our series in Hebrews titled Jesus is Better. And we're going to take that and ride that wave all the way to the end of the school year. That'll finish us up around May. By far, one of the things that your student needs to hear is that Jesus is the all-satisfying Savior for all that they have in life and in death. Your students, whether they're depressed, anxious, or whether they're academically astute or athletically gifted, everybody needs to hear that Jesus is the answer to all of their woes. Doesn't mean their life will be easier. In fact, Jesus promises things will be harder for them. Nevertheless, Jesus is highlighted in this ministry, and I'm going to do that week in and week out. I would love for you, I'm sure you already have this desire, to make that a regular feature of your family life. So we're here on Wednesdays just like the Narrow. The Narrow is over across the parking lot. High school actually meets in this very room right here. We meet from 6 to 9 o'clock, which corresponds to Abide Ministry, which works out really nicely. We have dinner together. We have a service, which lasts about an hour. I preach for about 55 minutes, leaders, right? Give or take. They said too long. About 55 minutes, and if it's a really big topic, I'll even go a little longer. So I'm not afraid to preach, and I think for the most part, they like it. I hope they do. So I preach. I love preaching, and I'm all about your high school students. In fact, one of the reasons I love high school ministry, and I've been doing it for so long, is because God opened my eyes in high school, and I found it to be so critical to have people like you, parents, and even leaders in this room who really changed the trajectory of my life. You know, had a single parent household. My dad was in prison, and through the church, I found godly men and women, but families as well, godly families that really put their arm around me and said, hey, we want to show you what the love of Jesus looks like. And by God's grace, here I am. I'm a pastor now. So all that to say, this is valuable. We highlight our service. It's a concentrated night. And as Pastor John said, we do everything on one night. It's a dinner, small groups, or rather dinner, service, and then small groups. And that 1, 2, 3 combination is very intentional. We find that this to be a very effective way at transmitting some of the necessary components of ministry. If you've been around Compass for very long, you know that Matthew 28, 18 to 20 is kind of our mission statement. It's the mission of the church that Christ gave us. We're called to make disciples. We're reaching, teaching, and training. Well, on Wednesday nights, we're trying to cram in all those components in one night, and we find it to be very effective. It's helpful. It gets us in the right direction. There's good momentum. There's good energy on that. So we like that. We're keeping that. On the weekends, similar to what the Narrow's doing, high school does something called student ministers. It's similar to Train, so it's very discipleship-oriented. In the fall of this year, we're not doing that, well, at least not in the same way. I'll be teaching across the street at Compass Bible Institute with Dr. Don Whitney, who literally wrote the book on spiritual disciplines. So it would be great if your student hasn't already, if they're already a CBI student or if they're wanting to audit that, I would love to focus them there. I would love for them to read the books and to write the papers and to be part of that. And CBI is making a special exception for high school students. If they're 9th or 10th graders, now they won't be able to take it for credit that's transferable to other institutions, but they will be able to audit the class. And so they can participate to the degree that they're desirous of. Starting in January of 22, student ministers will ramp back up and to become our own thing once more. We'll be meeting on Saturdays at the same time, God willing, that junior high's meeting. And that'll be our weekend component. Of course, to reiterate what Pastor John said, we would love for you as families to go to church together. We are about that. We would encourage you to, mom and dad and kids, go sit under the sermon together, sit together, enjoy the service, worship together. It's a good thing for you guys, and we want to encourage you to continue that direction. Okay, so that's our Wednesdays. That's a little bit of our weekends. A couple quick things for you parents. I want to encourage you. as in the high school ministry, I get to see a lot of different faces and a lot of different people, and I get to do counseling with some of you guys, and I get to hear from the students directly about some of the things that they struggle with. Let me encourage you at a certain direction to kind of piggyback a little bit about what Pastor John was saying. Deuteronomy 6 and Ephesians 6 and Colossians 3 all put you as the parent as the primary discipler. We have the privilege of being pastors and leaders and lay leaders around the church to help cooperate and partner with you in that. But God calls you to an infinitely greater responsibility. You have the primary role to disciple your sons and daughters. And let me give you a couple quick hints on how that can best be affected. First of all, when you're encouraging your son or daughter to do A, B, C, or D, let it be the case that you're modeling that. Granted, none of us in this room would claim to have to be perfect in the way that we exemplify our Christianity, but God calls you to be faithful. So in your family, make sure that you are living a life that models the kind of thing you expect to see out of your sons and daughters. Sometimes our students, and often they have a radar for this, and I guess we all do really, but your students have a radar for hypocrisy. They're very sensitive to that. And in today's day and age, when you see a lot of leaders in the public eye fall in dramatic ways, in ways that violate conviction, in ways that violate their Christian testimony, you see a lot of deconstruction of people that were used to be Christians and no longer are because they've been jaded by this or that or some other feature. Part of the story that people tell is that, oh, I thought my pastor, I thought my mom or dad were, they were faithful followers, but they were hypocrites. They were just fakes for this reason or that reason. Well, granted, again, no one in this room is perfect, and I'm not saying that you should. What I'm saying that as parents, you should aspire to be faithful before the Lord and lead them in your family. Let them see that modeled in your life. Probably one of the most important factors in that is by making church your priority. If you want them to come to the narrow and a true north, you got to make sure that you yourself are saying, look, church is important to us. We go to church on Saturday at 5 or Sunday at 11 or whatever it is whatever time you go. You're saying, look, we go to church. Jesus is our priority. And here's a temptation for you parents. If you're part of my freshman breakfast that we had a few months ago, I said this to you guys, and pardon me if you hear it again. One of the temptations for parents in this particular season of life, high school ministry, 9th through 12th grade, is sports and academics. And those are the first two things that are going to crowd out their schedule. And often, you're going to feel the pinch of, well, I can let Johnny be on varsity, or I can make him go to True North or the narrow if you're, middle school sports. You're teaching your son or daughter by the decisions that you make with them. If you say, you know what, I'm going to let you do sports and I'm not going to have you go to the thing, or I'm going to, you're really falling behind in algebra, so I'm going to make you spend, Wednesday nights when they have tutoring, I'm going to have you go to tutoring instead. Those are, between you and the Lord, you get to make those decisions. And so again, Deuteronomy 6 places the primary responsibility on your shoulders. But let me encourage you as a high school pastor who's gotten a chance to see the consequences of some of those decisions. It should not surprise you if your son or daughter begins to go a different direction when you are not setting the example for them to follow and saying, look, our family prioritizes Jesus, and that means we go to church, and that means we spend time going to youth ministry. That means we do the thing that the church is doing. I'm not trying to guilt you or make you feel bad if you've made some of these decisions in the past. It's certainly not my desire. My desire is to encourage you to think critically about modeling what faithful Christianity looks like in your life so that your son or daughter has a faithful representation of that. So when you make them go to church on Wednesday nights, they're not bucking against the system and saying, well, hold on a second, you don't do that. You do something else. You've made exceptions and you don't want to go for that. You were tired that day and we didn't make us go, but you're making me go and I have practice tonight. And they're going to say things like that, and it's going to sting if you can't, with a clear conscience, say between you and the Lord, like, I've been faithful. Yeah, perfect, no, but faithful. So that was a little longer than I anticipated, but let me encourage you, stay in the game. Junior high and high school ministry can be challenging for us. I know it's going to be challenging for you as mom and dad. There's complicated issues, and we've only touched on the topic. Some of the books you got are books that I handed out to my leaders and to other people because they're relevant topics. You should have some talking points about transgenderism. You should have conversations with your sons and daughters about human sexuality, because if you don't, others will. And if they have any social media, we're getting into other stuff here. Let me just step it back for a second and just say, hey, we're behind you. We are praying for your ministry as parents. And one of the reasons that you're here tonight is because we value your role in your sons and daughters' life. So what we're going to do right now is I am going to let you guys have the rest of the night until 8 o'clock, which is about 15 minutes or so, about 20 minutes. You got 20 minutes to interact with the leaders at your table. If you haven't done it already, exchange contact information. Make sure that you give them some insight about your son or daughter, things that they're saying, things that they're struggling with. Not that you have to go in graphic detail, but just a few things that would be helpful for them. And parents, let me encourage you with this huge, massive request, okay? But hopefully a necessary one that you'll see as I say this. Please pray for your sons and daughters' leaders. Like what they do and what the way that they care for your kids, it's tough. It's spiritual warfare. So please put them on your prayer list and pray for them regularly. I can tell you that they're praying for your kids regularly, and I'm sure that many of them are praying for you even. So make tonight count for what it's worth. You have 20 minutes. Feel welcome to get some more buntinis. I think there might even be some food left over if you want seconds or thirds. But use the last 20 minutes or so to hang out with your leaders and your parents. Have a great night. Thank you again for being here. We're grateful to partner with you. And so with that, have fun at your tables.